President Cyril Ramaphosa has launched the Border Management Authority, which he says it seeks to ensure that South Africa's immigration laws and regulations are upheld and enforced. Let's bring in SABC News reporter Canny Maphanga to unpack the launch of the BMA in Musina. Canny, good afternoon. It's been a very significant day for South Africa, and perhaps you could talk us through the importance of this launch and how it's been received in Musina.
Well, good afternoon to you, Liesl, and the viewers at home. Indeed, the President has concluded his keynote address at the launch of the BMA. It takes place at the Musina Showgrounds, which is the home of the Beitbridge border. That's one of the busiest ports of entry that we have here in South Africa. Of course, we know the challenges that come with that border, including illegal migration, vehicle smuggling, and all sorts of crimes. So with the BMA, we have now one single authority, single command for border enforcement there in Beitbridge, as well as other ports of entry, that is land, sea and air in the country. Now, of course, there are a number of challenges where we speak of the environment that enables some of the challenges that necessitated something like the Border Management Authority in this country. To unpack this further, I am joined by Dr Mike Masiapato, the Commissioner of the BMA, following this elaborate launch, successful launch rather, of the BMA. Of course, it comes at a time where there are a lot of challenges, specifically borders, and everybody looking to Beitbridge and Lebombo, specifically with regards to vehicle smuggling, human trafficking, illegal migration. A lot of these challenges that you've seen at these borders has been due to that fertile ground, corruption, if I can, these challenges to grow in those specific border ports of entry. Now, with these deployments, that reality still sticks. How can we ensure that this deployment can uphold the rule of law and the Constitution when performing their duties at this border or port of entry?
No, thank you very much, Canny, for the opportunity. I would like to agree that indeed there has been a lot of challenges in as far as border management, and I think you had correctly articulated all of those. But what we can indicate is that with the Border Management Authority coming into the space, we have been doing a lot of work administratively in making sure that we integrate all of the various functions which were performed by various departments at the ports, and we believe that that integration on its own is going to start contributing towards kind of addressing some of the challenges, inclusive of corruption. You will remember that the fragmented approach, because of the silos that operated on the ground, it also created some kind of a fertile ground wherein people could be easily, be corrupted. So to that extent, we do believe that with the integration, especially with the infusion of the actual different functions under one single authority, that in its own will assist us to start addressing those issues. But the most important aspect is that at least Section 13 of the Border Management Authority Act tells us that everybody who is to fully function inside the Border Management Authority must then be vetted regularly. And that on its own, at least is an instruction by law. It will make things a bit easier for us to be able to identify individuals who might be living beyond their means through lifestyle audits. So that on its own, we should be able to identify people that are kind of living their means, and obviously be able to effect some investigative work to be able to isolate them and get that addressed.
Now, we know that this launch that takes place, it's not the official launch. It's just the legally established version of the BMA. Since the BMA has been on the ground, we know that the function is border enforcement, and some of these borders, these busy land borders that have been highlighted as the ones that have porous, that are of a porous nature rather. What is the work that has been done there so far that you could report back on with respect to the guards that you have deployed there?
Yeah, so out of the work that has been done by the 221 border guards that we deployed in terms of last year to date, there has been some bit of, I would say, successes that we can be able to quote. A typical example of that is we were able to intercept around 141 vehicles that had been hijacked in the country with the intention of getting them out of the Republic to some people out there in other parts of the continent who would have procured them. So out of that, we handed those stolen vehicles to the police detectives for them to do the work. But additional to that, we were able to intercept around 35,000 individuals who were trying to enter the country without documentation. So for those ones, we had to get them actually apprehended. We then got to make sure that they are processed with their fingerprints taken, declared undesirable, and then deported to their respective countries. But over and above that, at least around 95,000 were also stopped trying to enter the country fraudulently. Either they were carrying fraudulent passports, or they were carrying fraudulent visas or anything of that nature. And through our biometric movement control system, which we have started implementing to make sure that at least we have to record each and every person's biometric, we started to have those, as it were. But I think the other thing that we can cite, by the way, Canny, is the kind of work that we have started doing with our colleagues from SARS in terms of trade facilitation. I think you would have seen now on the N1 corridor towards Beitbridge border here that those chaos that used to be very much out there, in terms of the congestion of trucks, some kind of disorderliness and all of those issues, we have started to have some impact. That is why now you will see that there is a better movement of trade. We do know that at least in terms of the Libombo border post into Mozambique, into Maputo port, unfortunately there we still have the challenges. But as we speak now, we have a lot of work that we are doing with a number of stakeholders, including the private sector, as well as the local traffic police on the corridor to start to make sure we stabilize that environment. So these are some of the things that we have been doing up to this point, but we do believe that in no time we should seeing real progress out of the environment.
All right, thank you so much, Dr. Masiapato, speaking quite positively about the work of the BMA and working towards attaining safe and secure borders for South Africa. It remains to be seen, however, whether the environment in South Africa will be enabling for these border officials to continue to perform their functions in accordance with the Constitution.